Since they changed the schedule to 17 games, we are now officially 47% of the way through the 2023 season. And Sunday, we're talking about children's Halloween costumes. This is a children's book here. It was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day for a lot of quarterbacks around the league. Kirk Cousins may have torn his Achilles, which would mean his year is over. Kenny Pickett, Matthew Stafford, Tyrod Taylor all gave way to their respective backups. Mr. Trubisky, Brett Rippon, and Tommy DeVito, if you keep the score at home. So, Breach, let's start in Minnesota. 2 weeks ago, we were all talking about how the Vikings were going to have a fire sale, whether it was Danielle Hunter or the aforementioned Kirk Cousins getting traded. Then they beat the 49ers on Monday Night Football, that game no one saw coming. Worked over the the Packers today on Sunday. Now they're at 4-4. They're at 500. 2-0 in the NFC North, best record in the NFC North. They're currently on the inside looking out as a playoff team. Jaron Hall is the backup quarterback, the rookie out of BYU. Nick Mullins is on the practice squad. So if you're Kevin O'Connell, what is the plan going forward if you're the Minnesota Vikings and are going to be without Kirk Cousins?
Well, I don't think it can be Jaron Hall. I think you need someone. Obviously, he's in the system. He's the guy that knows it best. So I'm not sure that Kevin O'Connell is going to want to move on. But it's not just these last two games that the Vikings won, because they beat the Bears a few weeks ago. So they've now won 3 games in a row. They're right in the thick of the playoff race. You can't just throw this season away, I don't think. You can't say Kirk Cousins is injured, we're done. Because I'm sure before the game started on Sunday, before you kick off against the Packers, you're kind of looking at the next few weeks. They were playing the Falcons in week 9, the Saints in week 10, the Broncos in week 11, the Bears in week 12 before week 13 bye. Those are all very winnable games if Kirk Cousins is your quarterback, where you could conceivably get to 8-4. Now, you probably don't feel that way, but here is what I would do if I am Kevin O'Connell. These are the top 4 guys I would go after. Number 1, Carson Wentz. That is only because if you make a trade, you're going to have to give something up. So I'm probably targeting the guy that I can get in free agency, and I don't have to give anything up. And I don't think he's a huge step down from what's available out there. So rather than give up draft compensation, I'm going to look to free agency first. After that, I'm going with my boy Andrew Gregory Dalton at number 2, Jameis Winston at number 3, and Teddy Bridgewater at number 4. But of course, you'd have to trade for Dalton, Winston, or Bridgewater. But I do think the Vikings have to do something. The thing is, they barely have 24 hours to figure this out because the trade deadline's Tuesday at 4 p.m. So, Brinson, what do you think? Should they make a trade? Should they sign Carson Wentz? Should they just roll with whatever's on their roster, snap the ball to Jordan Addison because he's been crushing it?
No, I think there's a couple other options that you could look at that'll be a little more cost effective. Colt McCoy spent several years with Kevin O'Connell in Washington, so he knows the system too. He's a free agent. You can go out and get him. He would make a lot of sense. Case Keenum is 3rd on the depth chart in Houston. And remember, he's played in Minnesota, Minneapolis Miracle, so maybe he could make sense if you wanted to trade for him. And then they also have Nick Mullins, who's on IR. It has one more week that he's got to sit out before he's eligible to come back from IR, plus Sean Mannion on their practice squad. I think some amalgamation of those guys, since it's Halloween, some Frankenstein monster that Kevin O'Connell patches together where, as you point out, Breach, you are currently, the 7 seed in the NFC. You're 4-4. Playing all these games except for today, right? The first time you're not in this 1-score game, you're up by 2 scores, of course. When Kirk Cousins gets hurt, if you read the quotes out of Minnesota, man, I mean, I know that we've all sort of dunked on Kirby for years, but Kevin O'Connell was suggesting that this was his best professional season in his career. Kirk Cousins, that is. Garrett Bradbury, my boy, was like, dude, it's devastating when he's not out there. Kirk Cousins had never missed a game because of injury. He sat out a week 17, I guess, game when the Vikings had clinched a playoff spot. And then in 2021, he missed a game because of COVID, but he's never missed a game because of injury in his career. He is one of the most reliably healthy guys in the NFL, and he was playing really good football. I think he was 2nd in the NFL top 3 in the NFL in passing yards and passing touchdowns. And as you said, Breach, the schedule was easy. 4 games going to the bye at the Falcons versus the Saints, at the Broncos, and versus the Bears. Now, the Falcons are sort of up and down. The Bears are playing a little bit better at times. Depends on when Justin Fields is back. And then Denver's looked better the last couple of weeks. But I think the real dagger here is that the Vikings defense has been playing great football the last couple of weeks. And I mentioned this earlier in the week on the podcast, but Harrison Smith was on the Pat McAfee show and just talking about how even as a veteran, that it took him a while to sort of pick up Brian Flores' defense. And like, there's a lot of new stuff that he was sort of learning and that all these guys were sort of learning. And now they feel like they're starting to click. And it's just such a dagger because, we're all sort of crapping on this Minnesota team after that slow start. And maybe, the weekend NFC with a healthy Kirk Cousins and a defense that's playing well and Justin Jefferson coming back, you feel like they could have made a run. It's tough to see now, but apparently just a 0.9 difference in terms of their win total, according to our sports side projections, which is kind of mind blowing.
Can I ask Wilson one thing? Wilson?
Yes.
Should Kevin O'Connell call up his former teammate, Tom Brady?
The Vikings, no, I don't think Tom would be down with that. Also the ownership stuff that you've talked about in the past with the Raiders that may
I still don't think he's that hadn't been cleared yet. I don't think.
Well, and real quick, that was a fun fact. Kevin O'Connell got drafted in 2008 and spent his rookie with the Patriots. Tom Brady.
I thought you were going to say that Kevin O'Connell was going to actually suit up. This does stink though, because I said this a couple times over the course of the afternoon and late evening. Kirk Cousins is the best player on this team, and I say that fully understanding that Justin Jefferson's also on this team, but Jordan Addison has stepped up with Jordan Jefferson being down.
Yeah.
And while there's been some loss in production, obviously, Jordan Addison has taken on that role. There is no Jordan Addison to take over for Kirk Cousins. And I think Nick Mullins makes sense in terms of being on the roster, but this is a huge step down no matter who it is, whether it's inside or outside the organization. And it absolutely sucks because, to Brent's point, this is the best Kirk Cousins has played. And I've actually said this numerous times over the first 2 months that there's been no reason to call him Kirby, which is what we used to call him when he would throw the predictable fourth quarter interception, usually in prime time. He beat the crap out of the 49ers in prime time. And then he's, curb stomped the Packers team. So the Vikings are a winner today. And they are actually probably the biggest loser, sadly, because of Kirk Cousins' situation. I do want to say another quarterback that left the game, and Brenton, I'll come to you because this is your dude. Matthew Stafford, probably the toughest person on planet Earth. I don't understand why he bangs his hand twice and then you throw him a swing pass on a 2-point conversion. Maybe Sean McVay is treating him much the same way Kevin Stefanski was treating Baker Mayfield towards the end of his career. But he came out, Brett Rippon came in. That game had long been decided. It was over at halftime. This team struggled last week against the Steelers. They obviously lost against the Cowboys. What's the prognosis for the Rams going forward with all these injuries?
I think it's a problem. And I can see, guys, with some I don't have a black eye. I'm just throwing something on for Halloween purposes. We established that at the top of the show. Try and show up on time if you're going to complain about what we're wearing. Nobody's asking about breaches.
All right, stay focused.
Pull over.
Talk about Matthew Stafford.
I know. I am.
He's going on a rant against the commenters. This is classic Brenton.
No, I
love the Halloween show.
Stafford.
Back to Matthew Stafford.
It wasn't even banging against the helmet. His thumb went inside somebody's helmet, or like going forward, like went inside the face mask, and you could tell he's just like, "Oh my god!" And they throw him that pass on the 2-point conversion. Dude is just tough as nails. And if it's like you look at Justin Herbert playing on Sunday night, and he's got the left injury to his left hand. It's been bothering him, but he's been working through it and he's been adjusting to it, et cetera, et cetera. Stafford, as tough as he is, it's going to be impossible to be able to play with a right thumb injury, but just because of how much you need that to grip and control and all of that. And I'm sure he'll try and fight through it, but it's I'm concerned that this is going to cause major issues for the Rams offense and Matthew Stafford's accuracy and his ability to get the ball out and deliver on time. And if you're the Rams, I'm not saying the Rams are dead or anything like that, but this is certainly a tough spot when you're 3-5 now. Because you lose that game, you get blown out by Dallas. You're at Green Bay. It's a must-win game at Green Bay in Week 9 before your bye. Then you got 2 straight divisional games against the Seahawks and the Cardinals. If you can beat Green Bay and you get to the bye, and then Stafford's fine after the bye, then the Rams can get right back in the mix here in the NFC.
All right, yeah. So Kenny Pickett also went down, replaced by Mr. Trubisky. Mr. Trubisky came in and threw an interception. Predictable. Tyrod Taylor went out. Tommy DeVito came in. Syracuse's own, by way of Illinois. He and Tyrod combined for negative 47 yards. It was slightly better than that, but it wasn't much better. They lost in overtime to the Jets.